Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here again, ready to take a good look at some fascinating sources and really pull out the key insights on topics that really matter.
That's the plan.
And today, we're diving into something pretty universal, something I think touches almost everyone, but it often stays, hidden. Loneliness. So that quiet thing, right? That sort of pervasive ache. It doesn't always shout, more like a whisper maybe. You feel it in those quiet moments at home, or maybe that silence between text messages.
You're rolling through social media. Yeah.
Exactly. Scrolling, seeing everyone else's seemingly perfect connections. And it's this huge paradox, isn't it? We're told this is the most connected age ever. Information, interaction, it's all right there constantly. But amidst all that, you hear these figures, millions of people, feeling completely, profoundly alone. Makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Have we maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe mixed up interaction with real intimacy, or, mistaken all this constant stimulation for actual connection.
That's really the heart of it, isn't it? And that's exactly what we want to unpack today. Our goal for this deep dive, it's really to go beyond just saying, yeah, loneliness exists. We all kind of feel that instinctively.
Right.
We want to dig much deeper, explore its biological roots, and yes, they are biological, understand its maybe surprising purpose, and crucially, find some real actionable ways for you to build authentic connection in your own life.
Okay.
This isn't just about feeling less lonely, it's about trying to shift your whole perspective on it. We want to invite you, the listener, to hear loneliness differently, not as some kind of flaw or a sign you're weak.
Which is how it often feels.
Exactly, but see it instead as a signal, or a really powerful one, actually. A signal that, if you learn to listen to it, can genuinely guide you towards feeling like you belong, towards better well-being.
That reframe loneliness as a signal, not a flaw that immediately feels, less heavy, more empowering somehow.
It should.
Because you're right, for so many people, it absolutely feels like a flaw. Like something's wrong with them. And this epidemic, it really is unseen, isn't it? It's not like a broken arm, obvious to everyone.
No, not at all.
It works quietly. In those moments, maybe after you put your phone down for the night, or when things just get still, that silence when you're just with your own thoughts. And because it's so quiet, so insidious, it almost never makes it onto the Instagram feed. You don't see posts saying, feeling utterly isolated today.
Definitely not the highlight reel.
So it goes unacknowledged, by ourselves sometimes, by others often.
Yeah.
And that just creates this painful gap between the connected life we might project online and the reality of how we feel inside.
And that hidden, quiet nature, that's precisely why it's so vital. We understand that this feeling, this whisper of loneliness, it's way more than just, an emotion.
Right.
The experience is emotional, absolutely. But its origins, its consequences, they're deeply biological. We're not just talking about a bad mood or feeling blue for a bit.
Right.
This is something that directly impacts your physical health, fundamentally. The research is piling up and it's becoming really clear. Loneliness isn't just in your head. It affects the body, almost like a chronic disease would.
Wow. Okay. Like a chronic disease. That's a really strong comparison. And that's where it gets super interesting, I think, because most of us, we compartmentalize, right? Loneliness is a feeling, maybe a mental health thing.
Sure.
But not something that could actually make us physically sick. Can you break that down a bit more? How does a feeling end up hurting our physical health?
It's a crucial link to understand. And the physical effects, they're pretty stark, honestly. When loneliness becomes prolonged, it triggers a sustained stress response.
Okay, the fight or flight thing.
Exactly. Your body essentially interprets being socially isolated as a kind of threat, similar to how it might react to, say, seeing a predator back in the day. This keeps your sympathetic nervous system switched on.
Which means
you're getting a steady drip of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These are meant for short bursts, escape the danger, then calm down. But when they stay elevated long-term because of chronic loneliness, that's damaging.
Oh, so?
Well, studies show this chronic stress ramps up inflammation throughout your entire body, systemic inflammation. And you probably know inflammation is linked to so many chronic illnesses.
Like heart disease. Things like
Heart
that.
disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune issues, even some neurodegenerative conditions. It's like this low-level fire constantly simmering inside, causing damage silently.
Wow.
And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Sustained loneliness also weakens your immune system. Your body just gets worse at fighting off bugs, making you more vulnerable to everything from colds to more serious infections.
This is getting quite serious.
It is. And there's more. Research suggests it can even speed up cellular aging. It affects the length of your telomeres, those protective caps on your chromosomes.
I've heard of those. Shorter's bad, right?
Shorter is linked to increased disease risk and, quite strikingly, a higher risk of early death. Because of all these widespread damaging effects, some researchers have actually started calling prolonged loneliness the modern cancer.
The modern cancer. That's incredibly sobering.
Yeah.
It really hammers home how few of us grasped the physical danger here, the real health risks. It's way more than just feeling sad. It's something that could be literally wearing down your body from the inside out without you even realizing it until it's too late. So if it's that bad, how do we start to think about it differently? How do we move past seeing it as just this terrible thing?
Right, and that brings us back to that crucial reframe, especially knowing these biological impacts. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking loneliness is a personal failing, a character flaw. Like, what's wrong with me that I feel this way?
Yeah, that's a default, I think.
But it's just not true, and actually, it's a harmful way to see it. Loneliness isn't a flaw. It's not weakness. It is, quite simply, a signal. And one of the most powerful ones your nervous system can send. It's just pointing to a fundamental truth about us as humans, something baked deep into our biology. We are wired for connection.
We need it.
We absolutely need it. The signal is just saying, hey, something essential here, something vital for your well-being, maybe even your survival, it's missing. It's like an alarm bell, not a personal judgment. It's not saying you're broken. It's saying you're missing a key ingredient for thriving.
It's amazing how sensitive our bodies are to this. A signal, not a flaw. That really is a huge mental shift, isn't it? From how we're often taught to think about these feelings.
It is.
It's like our body is trying to help us, guide us, not criticize us. Viewing it as feedback, vital feedback, instead of personal failure, that feels much more hopeful. It shifts things from blaming yourself to understanding yourself, and hopefully to taking action. But why? Why is the signal so strong? Why are we so wired for connection?
To really get why loneliness hits so hard, why it causes such a deep biological reaction, we kind of have to zoom out and look at our evolutionary past. Our brains didn't develop in a vacuum, right? They didn't evolve for us to be solitary creatures.
Right, we hear about cavemen in groups.
Exactly. They evolved in tribes, around fires, in communities where working together wasn't just nice, it was absolutely necessary for survival. Think about it, protection from predators, finding enough food, raising kids who are vulnerable for years, passing on knowledge.
All that required a group.
Absolutely predicated on togetherness, on cooperation, on belonging. For hundreds of thousands of years, our survival literally depended on relying on others, contributing, being part of that social fabric. That deep ancient history has shaped the very wiring of our brains. The need for connection isn't just psychological, it's a biological imperative.
It really makes you picture it, doesn't it? Sitting around that fire, everyone playing a part, needing each other for safety, food, everything. When you think about it like that, you realize just how deep this need must run. It's not just a preference. It was life or death baked into us.
And this deep wiring is really well supported by something called the social baseline theory. It's a fascinating idea.
Okay, what's that?
It basically proposes that your brain assumes other people are nearby. That's its default setting, its low energy, comfortable state. Operating within a social context is what it expects.
So it expects backup.
Kind of, yeah. And here's the really interesting part. The theory suggests your brain actually works harder, uses up more energy, more cognitive resources when you're alone.
Seriously. It takes more effort to be alone.
That's the idea. It's like being isolated is an unexpected, high-effort state compared to its preferred default of being connected. When your brain senses you're alone, it has to ramp up things like vigilance and self-regulation tasks it would normally kind of offload or share with social partners.
Wow. That's wild. More energy just to be alone. It makes me think of that analogy from the sources, the one about carrying a log.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration.
You're carrying a heavy log by yourself. It's incredibly hard work, right? You're straining, focused entirely on this massive solo effort. But if just one other person helps you lift it, suddenly that same log feels so much lighter. The burden's shared, the effort's less. It becomes manageable.
Exactly. And that's not just a nice metaphor. It's literally how your brain seems to process life itself. When we're isolated, the brain sees the world, sees just existing as more stressful, more energy draining, requiring more constant effort.
Like carrying that log all the time, even if there's no actual log.
Precisely. This constant extra effort, operating outside its expected social baseline, that's why isolation feels so draining, why it can lead to fatigue, brain fog, feeling overwhelmed, and it's why your nervous system sends that loneliness signal so strongly. It's trying to get you back to that easier, safer baseline where the load feels lighter because it's shared. It's not punishment. It's a push towards efficiency and safety.
Okay, that makes so much sense. So if that's the drain of isolation, what about the flip side? What happens in our bodies when we do connect? When we share the load or even just share a moment, feel seen, what's going on then?
Well, that's where the magic of oxytocin comes
It's
in.
the love hormone, right?
It gets called that, yeah.
Yeah.
And it definitely plays a role in bonding and love, but it's much broader than just romance. It's really the biology of trust, the biology of feeling socially safe.
Okay.
When we have those moments of genuine connection, maybe it's making real eye contact, sharing a big belly laugh with someone, getting a comforting hug, or having one of those deep conversations where you feel truly heard. Your body releases oxytocin, and its effects are pretty immediate and profound. It literally softens the heart, both metaphorically and physiologically, affecting things like heart rate. It actively counteracts stress by lowering cortisol levels.
So it calms that stress response we talked about.
Exactly. It dials down the vigilance, turns off the alarm bells, and crucially, it helps us feel safe again. That feeling of safety lets us lower our defenses, relax, and actually bond. It dampens the fear circuits. It's basically the biological antidote to the brain working overtime in isolation. It brings us back to that easier connected baseline.
That's a really beautiful system when you think about it.
Yeah.
Designed for connection. It really reinforces that message from the sources.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to stop beating ourselves up about feeling lonely.
Yes.
Stop seeing it as this shameful flaw and really start listening to it, because it sounds like it's pointing us directly towards what we need biologically: more oxytocin, more connection, more safety. But what does that actually look like day to day? Do we all need to suddenly become super outgoing and build huge networks?
That's a really important practical question. And the answer, thankfully, is no. The sources really emphasize this. The solution isn't about the number of friends you have. It's not about having hundreds of connections.
Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. It's about having a few real ones, maybe even just one truly supportive relationship. And sometimes, honestly, it's even simpler than that. It can be about finding connection in just a moment of genuine presence, a brief, real interaction. And that brings us to the idea of micro-connections.
Micro-connections. Okay, I like the sound of that. Less intimidating than, go deep, lifelong friends immediately.
Exactly. These aren't huge gestures. They're small, everyday things that often feel almost insignificant on their own, but they add up.
So what are some examples? What does a micro-connection look like?
It could be incredibly simple, like offering a genuine smile, one that actually reaches your eyes to a stranger you pass, or the barista.
Instead of just the nod?
Oh, right. Or giving a sincere compliment to a colleague about something specific they did well. Online, it could be leaving a thoughtful comment that shows you actually read or watched something instead of just a thumbs up.
Takes a tiny bit more effort, but feels different.
It does. Or sending a quick text to someone you haven't chatted with in a while, just saying, hey, thinking of you, hope you're doing okay. Maybe asking how they really are. Or simply putting your phone down and giving someone your full attention for a minute or two while they're talking, really listening.
They seem so small, these things, almost throwaway moments sometimes. But you're saying they actually build something substantial. How do these tiny interactions create emotional stability?
They might seem small individually, but their cumulative effect is really quite powerful. Each little micro-connection, each tiny bridge sends a consistent message back to your brain. You're seen. You belong. You're not invisible. Each one is like a tiny dose of that safety signal, maybe a little oxytocin release, a brief moment where the brain doesn't have to work quite so hard. Over time, these little positive hits build resilience. They gently counteract that chronic stress response.
So it's like banking small deposits of connection.
That's a great way to put it. And there's fascinating research backing this up. Studies from places like UCLA's Social Neuroscience Lab have found something incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Get this. Even just witnessing acts of kindness, not doing them yourself, not receiving them, just seeing someone else be kind or compassionate, activates some of the same parts of the brain that light up when we ourselves receive love or social connection.
No way. Just watching kindness is good for our brains.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It shows how deeply attuned we are to pro-social behavior, how much our brains resonate with connection, even passively. It suggests that creating or just being in an environment where kindness happens is beneficial.
Wow. Okay, so the big takeaway here feels really clear then. Connection doesn't have to be this huge, daunting thing. It doesn't require a personality transplant.
Not at all.
It just needs to be real, authentic, even if it's brief.
Yeah.
Small, consistent, real moments. That's where the power lies.
Precisely. And speaking of authenticity and realness, it's also fascinating how this modern scientific understanding echoes much deeper older wisdom. There are layers to understanding connection that many ancient cultures just knew. They lived it long before we had brain scanners.
Right. It often feels like science is just catching up to things people knew intuitively for centuries. What are some examples of that? Where does ancient wisdom meet this modern neuroscience of connection?
Well, one really beautiful and powerful example comes from Southern Africa, the concept of Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. I've heard that word.
It's more than just a word, really. It's a whole philosophy, a way of seeing the world. The simplest translation is often, I am because we are.
I am because we are.
But it goes deeper. It means our identity, our very selfhood, isn't separate. It's relational. We are fundamentally interconnected. Our humanity is tied up in the humanity of others. You literally become a person through other people, through community, through connection. It fosters this sense of shared identity and compassion.
That's incredibly profound, especially when you think about how individualistic a lot of modern culture can be. I think, therefore, I am versus I am because we are.
It's a very different starting point.
And it feels like science is catching up. When you talk about being formed by each other, it makes me think of mirror neurons.
Exactly. Perfect connection. Mirror neurons are those amazing brain cells that fire not just when we do something, but also when we watch someone else do the same thing.
Like watching someone yawn, and then you yawn.
That's a simple example, yeah. But it goes much deeper. They're thought to be fundamental to empathy. They let us kind of internally simulate or understand what others are doing, feeling, intending, almost as if we're experiencing it ourselves.
So it's like empathy isn't just something we learn, it's built in.
That's what the evidence suggests. It seems to be hardwired. Our brains are designed to resonate with others, blurring those lines between self and other on a basic neurological level. Very Ubuntu, really.
That is fascinating. So beyond these philosophical overlaps, are there ancient practices that tie into this? Ways people actively cultivated this sense of connection?
Absolutely. Ancient Buddhist wisdom offers a really practical and powerful path here through what's called metta meditation or loving kindness meditation.
Loving kindness.
It's a practice that's been around for centuries, designed specifically to cultivate feelings of warmth, goodwill, and connection, starting with yourself and then extending outwards.
So how does that work? If someone wanted to try metta, what would they actually do?
Yeah.
It sounds potentially very helpful for shifting that internal feeling state.
It's surprisingly straightforward, but the effects can be quite deep. Typically, you'd sit quietly, maybe close your eyes, and you start by directing kindness towards yourself.
Towards yourself first. That's interesting.
Yes, self-compassion is the foundation. You silently repeat phrases wishing yourself well-being, things like, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. You really try to feel that warmth for yourself.
Okay.
Then you gradually extend those same wishes outwards. First, to someone you love easily, a friend, a family member, then to a neutral person, maybe the mail carrier, someone you see but don't know well.
Just extending the same wishes.
Exactly. May you be well, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering. Then, and this can be challenging but powerful, you extend it to someone you have difficulty with.
Wow, okay. That takes practice, I imagine.
It does, but it's about recognizing their humanity, too. And finally, you broaden it out to encompass all beings everywhere. May all beings be well. It's this intentional, systematic cultivation of universal goodwill. You're actively training your mind towards compassion.
That sounds gentle, but really potent. A conscious choice to practice feeling that connection. What does the science say? Are there measurable benefits to doing metta?
The research is definitely there, and it lines up beautifully with everything we've been discussing. Regular metta practice has been shown to significantly increase positive emotions, joy, gratitude, love, hope. It's not just a temporary boost. It helps build a more positive baseline state.
It alone sounds worthwhile.
It really is. It also helps reduce self-criticism. And we know how much harsh self-judgment can get in the way of reaching out, right? It makes us feel unworthy.
Fully.
And here's a really cool biological link. Metta practice has been shown to strengthen the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, what's that?
Think of it as your body's main calming pathway. It's a huge nerve connecting your brain to your heart, lungs, gut, part of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system.
Ah, the opposite of fight or flight.
Exactly. Strong vagal tone, a well-functioning vagus nerve, is linked to better emotional regulation, resilience to stress, and a greater capacity for empathy and social connection. Practicing metta seems to tone this nerve. It's like hitting the internal brakes on stress, calming your heart rate, helping you feel more at ease, more open, more connected.
So by consciously practicing something like metta, we're not just changing our thoughts, we're potentially changing our physiology, retraining our nervous system towards calm and connection.
That's exactly what the evidence points towards.
And by doing that, we can start to quiet that inner voice that screams, "You're alone," and maybe amplify the quieter one that knows deep down you're connected.
Yeah.
It's like actively responding to the loneliness signal, not just noticing it.
Beautifully put. That's the potential power here. But let's be real. Knowing all this is one thing. Actually reaching out, putting it into practice, that can still feel really hard.
Oh, absolutely.
It's completely normal to hit resistance. Those fears pop up, right? What if they don't text back? What if I just sound awkward? Maybe it's been too long. Maybe I'm just too messed up for connection anyway. Those fears are real. They can feel huge.
They really can. I think everyone's felt that hesitation. You have the phone in your hand,
Yeah.
you've typed the message, and then you just can't hit send. The anxiety takes over. It feels safer sometimes to just not try, especially when you're already feeling vulnerable.
And that's where loneliness plays its cruelest trick. It convinces us that this feeling, this ache, is uniquely ours. It isolates us by whispering, nobody else feels like this. You're the only one.
Yeah, it feels so personal.
But the truth, the really liberating truth, is that loneliness is everywhere. It's a fundamentally shared human experience, especially now. It cuts across all kinds of lines. All around you, maybe the person next to you right now, maybe a coworker, maybe that old friend, someone else is feeling that same ache, longing for the same connection you are. And often, they're just waiting, just like you might be, waiting for someone else to make the first move, feeling that same fear of rejection.
That's actually a really comforting thought, in a strange way, that the feeling itself connects us, even if we don't realize it. Knowing that makes taking that first step feel a little less like jumping off a cliff alone.
Exactly.
You don't have to be perfect. You don't need the perfect words. Maybe you just need to be honest. Brave enough for a moment to start the conversation. Send the text. Ask someone how they're really doing and mean it. And then actually listen.
That authenticity, showing up as you are, vulnerability and all, that's powerful. Recognizing the person you're reaching out to might be feeling just as hesitant. And even when you do all this, even when you practice, it's so important to remember. There will still be days you feel disconnected.
Right. It's not a cure.
It's not failure when that happens. It's just
Right.
more feedback, that signal again, a reminder, maybe gentle, maybe not so gentle, to reach out again, to breathe, to start the practice over. It's not about banishing the feeling forever, but learning how to respond to it skillfully when it arises.
So connection isn't like reaching the summit of a mountain, planting a flag, and being done. Fixed loneliness.
Definitely not.
It's more like tending a garden.
Yeah.
An ongoing process, a dynamic thing. It's a practice. And like any practice, learning an instrument, getting fit, anything, it gets stronger, feels more natural. The more you return to it, the more you show up for it. It's a lifelong commitment to nurturing this fundamental need we all have.
Wonderfully said. So pulling all this together, understanding the signal, knowing we're wired for connection, seeing the power in micro-connections, and maybe even ancient practices, let's offer some really concrete steps, things you, listening right now, could try this week.
Yeah, let's make it practical. Okay, so try this. Just for the next week, 7 days. Commit to one micro-connection a day.
Just one.
One small, intentional act of presence. Maybe it's sending that text you've been thinking about. Maybe it's giving a genuine, specific compliment. Maybe it's putting your phone away and really listening to someone for 3 minutes without interrupting. Keep it small, but be consistent.
That consistency builds momentum. And if you feel ready, if you're curious about going a bit deeper internally, maybe try that metta practice, even just for 1 minute a day.
1 minute feels doable.
Find a quiet moment. Close your eyes if that helps, or just soften your gaze. Take a couple of deep breaths. And then just silently, gently repeat those phrases. Start with yourself. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. Feel it for a moment. Then extend it outwards. May you be well. Bring someone to mind. then maybe all beings. May all beings be well. Just for a minute.
You might really be surprised how something so quiet, so internal, can actually feel quite powerful. It's not about fixing everything instantly. It's about those small, consistent steps, noticing the signal and choosing to respond.
This whole deep dive, it really brings it home, doesn't it? Understanding loneliness isn't just about facing a tough feeling. It's about hearing a deep biological call back to who we are.
Yeah.
Seeing that signal not as a flaw, but as an invitation back to our wiring for connection. From Ubuntu's wisdom about our interconnectedness to the neuroscience of mirror neurons and oxytocin, the message is incredibly clear. You are not alone in feeling this way.
You really aren't. You never truly were. You are absolutely wired for connection. You are designed to feel deeply, and you are fundamentally built to belong.
And please remember this, even in those moments that feel the absolute loneliest, you still possess this incredible power, the power to become someone else's light.
And by doing that, you remind yourself of a fundamental truth. Compassion isn't weakness, it's your original strength. It's always there waiting. Take that strength with you. Go connect.